I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I'm not even supposed to be here today! Oh, fuck you!
Come on, you want me to drive? You're supposed to be suicidal. Remember, I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Get in the car.
Fuck me in the ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with a brand new movie review, and this movie review is going to be for 2002's Lilo and Stitch, the very original film, which was directed by, I can't remember who it was directed by, but this was made by some people that actually now work at DreamWorks, and have actually made some of DreamWorks' best films. So it's basically kind of launched their careers. This is back when they worked for Disney. Yeah, it's easily what many consider to be one of Disney's most well-known films of the 2000s. And what is the plot of Lilo and Stitch? Well, a alien creature escapes an alien planet and lands on Earth. Then he gets adopted by a small broken family and learns everything about multiple things that make up life. Meanwhile, on the other hand, though, he's being hunted by multiple aliens that want to lock him up for good. But yeah, so as my reaction to this movie, what can I easily say? I think Lilo and Stitch has honestly been one of my all-time favorite Disney movies, and honestly for a while was pretty much known by Disney as kind of like the very last successful movie they did for a few years. Until the early 2010s when they made Tangled, but before that came out, this was the last film that was a success at the box office, because after this movie, they had quite a few flops, like Treasure Planet got pretty good reviews from people, but it bombed really bad at the box office. Brother Bear didn't do too bad at the box office, but it wasn't too well received by people. Then they did Home on the Range, one of their worst films yet, that bombed with both critics and box office. Then they made the biggest piece of shit called Chicken Little, which, even though, yeah, sure, that made money, but it still got backlash from people, and it's considered one of Disney's worst films for a reason. Meet the Robinsons got better reviews, but not glowing critical acclaim, and it did not do well at the box office either. Some argue Bolt was their next big success since then, but a lot of people don't talk about Bolt. It's kind of the thing, I don't think even Bolt did make really as much as this, or it wasn't until kind of Prince and the Frog that, while that made much more money than some of the previous stuff they had, but it didn't do well on Disney standards, and that's when they had to change their game, and that's when Tangled became their first big hit after this film. But yeah, so this was kind of one of their really last magically felt films, because as much as I like some of their early 2010 stuff, well, not really their post 2016 films. Like their 2016 was the last year they were great, but this is back when they were actually great nearly every year. Heck, I remember this movie had such a great marketing tool where they had Stitch frequently appearing in quite a few of Disney's classics for several teasers, whether he crashed Beauty and the Beast, or whether he crashed Aladdin, or whether he crashed Little Mermaid, or whether he even crashed The Lion King by pretending to be baby Simba. And there's two versions of that teaser where either one animal points out it's not Simba, or Timon points out it's not Simba, one of them. There's two versions of that teaser. Yeah. So how was Lilo and Stitch made? So the film was based on an idea by Chris Sanders, who had conceived the movie in 1985. And the film's design and aesthetics were based on a personal art style. And Stitch was originally the center of a children's book Sanders had conceptualized, but Lee later abandoned it. And a feature-length film starring the character did enter development in 1997 when Thomas Schumacher, who was back then the president of Walt Disney Feature Animation, approached Sanders with the project of idea of producing a new generation of like the film Dumbo. And the use of watercolor backgrounds really harkened back to early Disney productions like Snow White. And the accompanying soundtrack really made some use of the music of Elvis Presley and Albert Silverstein had composed the film's score. Then after Lilo and Stitch was officially shot and marketed, Lilo and Stitch premiered at the El Capitan Theater in Los Angeles on June 16, 2002, and be theatrically released in the United States a few days later on June 21, 2002. When this came out, this got really great reviews from critics, where they praised the story, the humor, the charm, and originality. And it got produced on an $80 million budget, and with the whole marketing campaign, and the film was like I said, a box office success, and one of the last box office successes they had for a few years. Because it made over $273 million worldwide, got nominated for Best Animated Feature, but it lost the Spirited Away. And the film's success made it pretty much a highlight for the post-Renaissance era of the 2000s, and it even spawned a franchise where you had 3 direct-to-video film sequels. Well, to be fair, 2 of them are really just a pilot for the TV series and a finale for the TV series, really. One of them is technically more of a sequel. And I'm going to be honest here. I even kind of decently enjoy the 3 sequels. I actually do decently enjoy Stitch as a Glitch. I saw Stitch the film as a toddler, so I don't remember it that well, but I remember actually kind of liking it, and I do decently enjoy Leroy and Stitch. You know, I even grew up watching the TV series when it aired on Disney Channel, back when it was around. So I actually kind of like most of the franchise, and I would consider the sequels to this one of the few Disney sequels that don't suck. Let's get on with the good qualities of why Lilo and Stitch is such a great Disney film, and how the story goes. Because, you know, this film's a personal affair in mine. Like, it's one of Disney's most underrated animated films. I mean, it does get talked about by a lot of Disney fans, but there's some that don't really put them on the league of some of their Renaissance films. And why I like this film so much is because it has a great depiction of a relationship between 2 siblings in any Disney film. Yeah, no, an actually good, well-portrayed sibling relationship. Not the sibling relationship from that overhyped Frozen stuff, no. This film does that better in every single way. Because we actually get real flawed people, not typical Disney princesses, but it's also incredibly funny and it's entertained throughout, and that's why I really adore this film. And a look at the film is very distinct and reflectionally different from some of Disney's previous films they did before this. The visuals are gorgeous and the backgrounds are very well faded with good watercolors. The 2D animation is terrific with the artists, with how they do it, and every scene is full of original ideas and demonstration of how Chris Sanders and Dean DeBlois would use their imagination. And this was long before they went to join DreamWorks and made other great stuff like How to Train Your Dragon and The Wild Robot. Like, it has a really good new style drawing and backgrounds that really do look as good watercolor paintings, and Disney really took a bold step in trying to do something a little different. Like, yeah, the combination of stuff like Winnie the Pooh or starting more cartoons, and the dialogue and slapstick comedy feels like very Looney Tunes-like, and yeah, you even have a good soundtrack of a lot of well-known Elvis Presley songs in the film, and some great Hawaiian music as well, as this is set in Hawaii. And also another thing that's different is that it doesn't really rely on a lot of musical numbers, because this was around the time when Disney was kind of phasing out of the musical era. Like, the thing is, like, when they had all the trailers and commercials for this, and Disney would often show Stitch as kind of like an often crashing movies animated character. Whereas it kind of sets up how kind of Stitch is going to be portrayed in the film, where he's a creature that doesn't really get a lot of respect from others because of his kind of mischievous behavior. Like, even the characters in the teasers, they don't respect him. They're often telling him, get your own movie, or like Aladdin or Belle are telling that in their debut teasers, like whenever in those teasers for Stitch. And And apparently when the actors came back to record their characters' lines for these teasers, apparently these actors actually all loved Stitch. They already loved Stitch as a character, and they were actually shocked that they had to be negative to him. They actually did not like that they had to react negatively to Stitch because they actually really loved him as a character. So that's definitely a pretty nice fact to know. But like, other than like Lilo does respect him in the film, like almost everyone else in the film, especially his career Jumba, because he'll be granted freedom if he actually captures or kills him. Everyone else is trying to capture or kill him because they see him as an abomination and a threat. Like even Lilo's older sister kind of doesn't really know what to really think of him either, and it does play for a rather amusing kind of role in the story because like Stitch does a lot of obnoxious stuff, but no, not like today world obnoxious stuff. I mean, actually funny obnoxious antics. And he acts to the point where you even start to feel sorry for the little guy when he realizes he's really screwing things up, and he's starting to kind of learn how to be a little more human. Right there, and he starts trying to find love and acceptance he's kind of longing for. And it's also the story that Lilo and Stitch tells really well, and many other great elements that makes the film really outstanding. And the film was also very funny, like with moments of comic genius that really appeal to older audiences, and makes for a really touching film. And the whole middle of the movie is what really gives us great scenes that could really move the viewer to tears. So how do we start off the film? So we start off on a planet called Turo, where the Galactic Federation, led by the Grand Councilwoman at led by the Grand Councilwoman of Gantu, who unlike the remake is actually in this film. They convinced Dr. Jumba of illegal genetic experimentation, and has created our main character, Experiment 626, who's going to later become Stitch. This aggressive and indestructible creature with learning capabilities, and eventually, though, when they try to get some good out of the creature, he tells them, Miga nada Krista, and they're all, I don't know what that stands for, but from what I can tell, it's clearly something not great for what it clearly stands for, but for those who know what that stands for, tell me in the comments down below what that means in English, but it clearly does mean something very naughty, because a Grand Councilwoman says naughty thing, and Jumba's placed under arrest, placed an idiot scientist under arrest, and then of course you have Jumba's like, I prefer to be called evil genius, and of course 626 is going to be escorted by Captain Gantu for exile, but 626 knows that the guns guarding him are targeted towards him, and that gives him the idea to escape. He ejects a police cruiser that crash lands on Hawaii, and so after he lands on Earth, 626 gets run over by 3 trucks and taken to an animal shelter. And so the Grand Councilwoman finds out about his escape immediately, and she offers Jumba an early release if he gets 626 with the assistance of the Council's expert Agent Peakley. So the two have to go to Earth and find and detain Stitch. And so, on the course of that journey, Jumba and Peakley end up becoming one of the best comic relief duos at Disney when they're on Earth. Like, now the guys are technically only work together to catch Stitch, but you could tell in this version of the film, in this actually good version of the film, they clearly do start to kind of form their own friendship along the way. Like kind of like whenever they're like dressing up in their little disguises, or whenever or at the mosquito scene when the mosquito lands on Peakley, or then the swarm of mosquitoes show up, and of course like Peakley's actually really loves that the mosquitoes are landing on him, until he realizes they're taking all his blood and what they really do. And you have many other great stuff, like where Nanny's trying to keep custody of Lilo because her parents are gone, and social worker deems her not fit, and get tossed in with Stitch's character arc and searching for the one place he does belong, or Lilo's loneliness, or both of them being broken family, and the cherished love friendship with Stitch really make this a very heartwarming, touching feature. And it's one of the film's strengths. And the direction is solid, as is the animation. Like the water and the backdrop of Hawaii is very desirable, and the characters are really well developed. Like unlike the films Disney does today, and they're actually lovable. And these are characters you actually could identify and actually feel for them. And of course, like especially with Stitch, because of his bad emotions and his funny antics, and And I also really identified with Lilo as well. What makes the film so moving is their chemistry and scenes together. And the film is structured as really masterful as well. We witness like pretty much who was first seen as a monster really just uncovered the aspects of humanity, love, empathy, and he starts to choose out over destruction once he kind of learns about more citizen-like behavior and learns about Ohana on his first night at Lilo's house. And of course, Stitch gets a chance to understand what it really means to care, and through his relationship with Lilo, he learns of Ohana. There's a moment when Lilo's sister is just about annoyed with Stitch's antics and wants to take him back to the shelter. Lilo then tells her Ohana means family, and family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten because the Ohana message is actually done right in this version. It's in that moment that Stitch really understands what he truly wants, and it's not chaos, and he decides to stay. From that point on, he's not just really just a creature, and he ends up becoming really part of the family. So now we get to Hawaii where we meet our other protagonist, Lilo, who pretty much realizes she's late for hula class, is feeding this fish Pudge a PB sandwich, peanut butter for short. And then arrives, but she's still all wet, and so one of their classmates ends up slipping. And a teacher lectures her for being late. And when she explains her reasons for being late, that same classmate calls her crazy, and she furiously attacks her. But then, of course, this gets her in trouble. And then we find out that her parents are actually dead, and her older sister Nani is actually trying to take care of her, but she's struggling to take care of her because of how rambunctious she is. And then, of course, she also has to deal with social worker Cobra Bubbles, who is voiced by Vin Rames. Ironically, for a while I didn't know that was actually Vin Rames voicing the character. Until recently. And he doubts that Nani can actually be a good guardian for Lilo, and he's going to put Lilo in foster care if they don't improve within 3 days. So then her and Lilo and Nani get in this fight, but then they make up. And then that same night, Lilo wishes for a friend, so Nani brings her to the animal shelter to adopt his dog. And Lilo sees 626, thinks he's a dog, but he's impersonating as a dog just because he just wants to escape Jumba and Peakley. So Lilo adopts him and names him Stitch, and Jumba and Peakley disguise themselves as tourists, while trying to capture Stitch, and of course, when Jumba sees that Stitch is clearly just getting himself adopted to escape them, even he's disgusted by this. And he's like, "This is low even for you," which is actually a pretty good line, to be fair. And it is kind of at first he hasn't really learned love yet, so it is kind of a low thing. So after kind of looking around Hawaii a little more, Stitch is still trying to escape, but none of those attempts work out. Eventually, one night at this restaurant that Nani works at, Stitch attacks Peakley, disguised Peakley, and of course, because the boss thinks it's a customer, it's a human person, Nani gets blamed for the incident, and it gets fired. But of course, then Cobra Bubbles finds out about that and orders Nani to find a new job, and tells Lilo that Stitch needs to be a model citizen after Stitch throws a book at his face. And of course, this is kind of where, and then that night Stitch is causing more chaos in the house, and Nani wants to take back, but then she gets reminded of Ohana and then caves in and lets Stitch stay, and also Lilo kind of teaches Stitch all about her house and stuff, and about her family and parents, and then you get the Ugly Duckling book, and that's where Stitch's character development kind of starts. And so the next day, Nani's trying to find a new job, you get this little montage of Lilo trying to domesticate Stitch, teaching about Elvis Presley, and you have Devil in Disguise playing the background as well. And when she's trying to domesticate Stitch, either play guitar, it shatters a bunch of windows, or at one hotel tries to get romantically involved with this one elderly guest. That doesn't go well. Or at the grocery store, even while trying to teach him dance moves. That doesn't go well. And then the final straw comes when The final straw comes when Nani tries to find a beach lifeguard job. And Stitch is dressed in like Elvis costume. And of course things do go well. But he's like remembering the guitar stuff he learned. But then of course unfortunately, this attracts a bunch of paparazzi and who are fucking annoying. I hate paparazzi. And they immediately crowd him and take pictures of him, which pisses him off. Rightfully, yeah, and I can see why he gets pissed off because bright ass cameras are very annoying. And especially when paparazzi don't let you leave. Like both those things are annoying. So I can kind of see why Stitch attacks them in this next scene and breaks all their cameras. Like seriously, that is really like paparazzi are the worst. Like wow. But this job attempt fails because the Stitch causes more chaos. But though this one friend of both of them, David, cheers them up by taking them surfing. Then of course while this happening, Jumbo and Pleakley try to capture Stitch during this as well. But then this causes Stitch to drag Lilo underwater. But David rescues Lilo and Stitch as well. But Bubbles had been there, like he saw the mishaps, like the failed job opportunities. He even saw like the whole beach opportunity fail as well. And now he's observed the mishap as well. And so he, though, actually does sound sad when he says this, because you can tell right here he doesn't actually want to separate either of them. He tells Nanny, sadly, that he's going to retrieve Lilo the following morning, and actually kind of walks off with a sad look on his face when he says that. Because right there, you can tell, like, right here, you can tell he doesn't actually want to separate either of them, but he knows it might be but he clearly knows that he kind of has to for the best. He kind of has to do his job. And even admits that he knows Nani's actually trying to make things great. But he kind of has to do official business though. But yeah, Bubbles is actually a very likable social worker in a film. So Stitch actually feels guilty for causing trouble. And when he sees his family ducks looking at him, and then here's Nani and Lilo spending one more night together. Stitch then runs away, and then you get the Stitch's lost scene, which is probably one of Disney's saddest moments yet. Meanwhile, though, after Jumbo and Pleakley got blasted away during the water scene, the Grand Councilwoman fires them. And then, of course, Jumbo hears this, "We're fired! Now we're doing it my way!" And so she tasks Gantu to capture Stitch instead. And Gantu agrees to leave immediately, so... while Jumbo doesn't know that he has to be rearrested, but he thinks he's free now, so he decides to hunt Stitch with less covert methods. And first, things do seem a little grim, but David informs Nani that he found another job opportunity, so she quickly leaves the house. So Jumbo and Pleakley chase Stitch back to the Pelicai's house, and the fight then causes an explosion and destroys the house. Right there, and so, sorry guys. Now leads to more of that, and even the other aliens that are once enemies like Jumbo and Pleakley, they start to recognize that being Stitch's transformation around the climax, and they see his desire to kind of protect and really love outweighs the destruction that he was designed for. And the emotional way the film is rooted in the bond between both the Pelicai sisters. Lilo's not just isn't really just quirky, she's actually a socially isolated, traumatized child from the loss of her parents. And her sensitivity often gets mistaken for bad behavior. Nani's this young adult that's buried under the responsibilities she's now having to deal with, now trying to hold the family together, having to face job struggles, and the threat of child services stepping in. The awkward silence, the arguments, the small moments of tenderness is very well portrayed with raw humanity. It's not over melodramatic, and it actually does make the film hit a lot harder. And the soundtrack really does also play a big role in shaping the identity of the movie. The Elvis Presley songs really highlight Lilo's quirky taste, and even create a fun classic between local and American culture. You even have Hawaiian tracks like Himmel no Lilo, a Hawaiian roller coaster ride that also ground the movie in the good setting. And the film never really treats Hawaii as just a pretty backdrop. It actually does treat Hawaii as a real place. Right there. And it's and even plenty of humor too. And it's not cheap humor. Stitch's physical comedy. Whenever he's either wrecking stuff or the first night at Lilo's house where he's messing around and it randomly turns on this blender and sprays it in his face, or whenever he keeps trying to escape and they always fail because it results in assaulting other people. And there's one bit where Lilo starts to try to teach him to be more civil that night, and he scopes together San Francisco and goes on a rampage pretending to destroy it. Lots of great things, and even Leo's sharp dialogue is hilarious, and the hilarious comedy chemistry between Jumba and Peakley, or whether they have their disguises, and then even have the mosquito bits where, because Peakley's because kind of has this obsession with mosquitoes, and when he sees a mosquito lands on him, he's amazed by it, and then a swarm, and he's even more amazed when a swarm comes near him, until he realizes that they're sucking his blood. Of course, and what else can I think of her? Whenever Leo's trying to teach him to be a model citizen, and they don't always work out because Lilo kind of words him a little wrong, in a way, or where she's kind of like, it's kind of like the way she's doing it is trying to use like Elvis Presley-like methods, but they don't go so well. But the final attempt that doesn't go so well as well because the paparazzi wrecked it, and the final attempt was actually kind of going pretty well until the paparazzi actually ruined that moment. Heck yeah, or you even get this one side character, like this ice cream guy, who usually has this cone of ice cream, but sadly the main characters run into him, and whenever the main characters run into him, the ice cream cone gets ruined, either the ice cream drops or the cone gets destroyed. It adds this light, playful tone without undermining the deeper emotional core. Because this is back when comedy was not used as a way to distract the viewers, and this is back when comedy was actually only in the right moments. Now, like nowadays, whenever comedy appears in a lot of films, it's either played because everything needs to be all light, because back then sometimes things need to be a joke nowadays, or we can't have like one emotional connection to stuff now. We always gotta have something entertaining. Like, this movie actually balances both of those actually well. So, meanwhile, as the house is being destroyed by Jumba trying to detain Stitch, while Peakley's trying to go against that. Nani does get the job, but ends up having to go back home when she sees a fire engine going towards her house. And Bubbles has already arrived to claim custody of Lilo, and Bubbles and Nani are arguing about how Lilo's well-being will be. Lilo sneaks out of the car and goes into the woods, then encounters Stitch, and she's mad at him for now causing all the destruction and now pretty much separating her from her sister at this rate. And he ends up having to reveal his alien identity, and she's clearly even more furious now, but Gantu has already arrived and captures both of them. Well, he was only supposed to be capturing Stitch, but Gantu takes orders in his own hands and captures Lilo as well, so that Stitch can have a little snack on the way home. But Stitch is able to escape as Gantu's ship takes off. Nani though confronts Stitch, but Jumba and Peakley arrive and arrest him. And then Stitch eventually convinces Nani that they can go rescue Lilo, and so she asks them to save Lilo, but they only have legal authority to capture Stitch, and Stitch reminds her of Ohana, and then convinces Jumba to help rescue her, so the four then pretty much board Jumba's spaceship to rescue Lilo, and they pursue Gantu, and right there, either Gantu knocks him off his ship, and when Stitch decides to do the one last move to rescue Lilo, he saves this frog and pretty much launches himself to the ship and rescues Lilo, but also rescues Gantu from being killed as well, because he's now kind of learned love at this rate and learned not to kind of destroy things. So Lilo Stitch really illustrates acceptance, patience, and forgiveness and resilience. And there's the emphasis on Ohana as well. It encourages uniqueness and individuality. Throughout the film, at first Stitch just uses Lilo as a shield to save himself, but he then learns the concept of Ohana. And then that turns Stitch from a destructive and cruel person to a courageous, caring, and loyal figure. And apparently there was supposed to be a scene where we see that fish that Lilo was talking about at the beginning a little more, named Pudge, where she introduced Stitch to it, Stitch threw it to a flock of birds, and the birds killed him. And LILO berated him for this, telling that they don't let family die. I think that was supposed to make Stitch realize the errors of his ways. And you know what? I'm glad they took it out. I'm glad that scene is not in the movie. That was a special feature on a DVD I used to have. Well, I remember seeing a deleted scene, and when I first saw a deleted scene, I'm glad. I can see why they didn't put it in the film. I can see why Disney took it out, because if they had kept that in the actual film, it probably would have made Stitch's character development not really work, because I probably wouldn't like the character that much if they kept that in there, and it really just would have made the character come off as a sociopath. So I'm glad they took it out so that we could actually so that Stitch could actually be a likable character. That way. And then that way he could find some other way to realize his actions. And feel guilt. And actually make us sympathize with him in that moment. So in regards to the villains, like, there's pretty interesting things about the villains. There are 6 villains in the film. Although none of them are really well-proper Disney villains. And they don't wish to conquer the world at all. Like, yeah, this one, like, bully classmate of LILO that isn't really in the film much. There's this, technically speaking, social worker Color Bubbles. At first seems like he may be a villain, but then you find out at the beach scene he's just really a guy doing his job and really wants what's best for LILO and not even knows he has to follow orders. Jumbo and Peakley, they're hunting Stitch for personal reasons, but they're not really bad guys. No, not the Jumbo from the fucking remake that Disney thinks would have been a better thinks nowadays would have been a better villain, which just ruins his character development in this movie. Gantu is technically a villain, but he's just not really in the film all that much. He does see Stitch as a threat to the universe, and the Grand Councilwoman is also an alien just doing her job for the greater good and protection of the universe. And one of my other favorite moments is when Jumbo observes Stitch and comments to Peakley that he never created Stitch for a greater purpose other than destroy everything. He wished him what it would be like to not have much memories or anything else to remember. And there's many other scenes, good scenes seconds later, of like Stitch looking around for something to do, even reading books, like even comes across the Ugly Duckling book. That's when he kind of learns, that's the scene where he learns the old Ohana meaning. Okay, where he sees a picture of the Ugly Duckling crying, but then his family finds him in the next picture. So now we officially get on with the finale of the movie. So after LILO is rescued, David takes them and Stitch back to shore, and that's what David learns as Stitch is from outer space, and he thinks that's actually really cool. But then the Ground Councilwoman arrives to retrieve Stitch herself, and has Gantu fired for capturing LILO and failing to capture Stitch. But the Grand Councilwoman then sees Stitch's civilized behavior and gets informed, and Cobra convinces LILO to inform the Grand Councilwoman that LILO legally owns Stitch because she bought an animal shelter. So the Grand Councilwoman decides that Stitch is going to live out his exile on Earth, and the Pelikai family are going to be under the protection of the Galactic Federation. And then you find out that Bubbles actually was a former CIA agent that met the Grand Councilwoman in New Mexico in the year 1973. And so, after that, you get an epic Wyona cover of Burning Love with this montage of like Stitch living life with both the Pelikai sisters. And they all rebuild their house with David and Bubbles' help. And there's a montage of and then you get the montage of Stitch living life with them, where either Stitch is either baking a cake for LILO's birthday, or whether celebrate Christmas, or celebrate Halloween, or helping pack lunches for school, or actually now working at this, performing some of the stage acts with David as well. Or even one point, plays with some of the laundry he's supposed to be watching, like pretending he's like Count Dracula, and putting like tying nice bra to his ears, and another towel around himself, and just pretending he's a vampire, and not just staring in confusion, and even performing a hula class with LILO, and kind of end off the film. But yeah, that's officially the end of LILO and Stitch. Now the two versions, like, this is the one ending that actually works, because for one, Nani actually gets to keep LILO. It doesn't shit on the message of Ohana like the new one remake does. The two sisters actually stayed together, and Stitch is actually a better citizen as living his exile on Earth. and Jumbo actually redeemed himself and became part of the family. And even led to a good franchise where I enjoyed the direct-to-DVD sequel, Stitch Has a Glitch, and I enjoyed the TV series as well. I like how those actually kind of show more of their life with them, and you see Jumbo's other experiments in the show. So now we get on with the bad qualities of the film. For that one, I'd say Gantu is probably kind of a more flat villain because he's kind of not drawn too well. It doesn't really develop as a character much, other than really just being ruthless and bad-tempered. And there's kind of a bit of a plot hole for the film where how Stitch got to the pound. Like, if the owner of the pound really thought Stitch was dead, why would you put him with the rest of the dogs, especially if the rest of the dogs are shown to be terrified of him? And also being alarmed by his 6 legs and antenna. So it makes really no sense why she would put him in the shelter in the first place, but if he didn't, there wouldn't really be a film. So I guess there's that. I think that's about it, because to me the film is perfect as it is. So in the end, yes, I would buy Lilo and Stitch, this version though, for your collection for sure, no doubt. And yes, the remake will be getting reviewed the next day. Don't worry. That's going to be the next review. Anyways, that's it for my review of Lilo and Stitch. We're going to rank Lilo and Stitch. Here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you're keen on seeing a Disney film with a different kind of formula, then I would totally watch and buy Lilo and Stitch for your collection for sure, no doubt. If we're going to rank Lilo and Stitch, I'm going to give Lilo and Stitch a 9.5 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That officially wraps up my review for Lilo and Stitch. Now I want to know in the comments down below what you guys think about Lilo and Stitch, whether you like this film or whether you're just not too big on this film. And until then, that will be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.